UFC 296, Edwards versus Covington, full card predictions, last pay per view, last UFC event in general of 2023. Next event after tomorrow night isn't going to be until I think January 14th. So a lot of time off after this one. Going to get right into the card, starting with the bottom, making my way to the top as I always do. First fight is Shamil Gaziev versus Martin Budai. I'm going to go with Gaziev here. He is a slight underdog at plus 115. Look, it's mainly just the fact that I think Martin Budai's fought nobody good. It's not like Gaziev's fought an amazing level of competition either, but like Martin Budai, I mean, he's just like, it was embarrassing. I mean, the Jake Collier fight was just awful. They both looked like exhausted. Collier is so fat. He's a middleweight that gained like 100 pounds, and now he's like fighting at heavyweight. It's just such an embarrassment. Jake Collier is such a mess. Going from like he actually was a pretty like in shape middleweight. He just blew up, gained a bunch of weight, and is fighting at heavyweight. So that's not an impressive win. Josh Parisian might be one of the worst fighters in the UFC. He's the guy that got his face humped in North South from Dontel Mays, if you guys remember that. So two of those wins, not good wins. Lucas Bresky, Boudet should have lost to Lucas Bresky. And then before that, beat Chris Barnett in a less than impressive showing. And then for Gaziev, on the other hand, listen, it's not like Gaziev's some like world beater. I don't think Gaziev's gonna go anywhere near the rankings or anywhere near like the at least anywhere near like the top guys in the world. He's nowhere near that level either. But I feel like Gaziev, he is 11-0. I feel like he probably is slightly more of a prospect at this point than Martin Budai. I mean, they're both, a little bit older. Gaziev's a little bit older, but 33 years old at heavyweight, still not that old. Um, his last fight, against Greg Velasco in the Contender Series, worked his way. Actually, got his back taken in that fight, but worked his way out of it and ended up winning via rear naked choke. Beat Darko Stosic 17-5. Beat Pavel. I saw this fight against Pavel, and I saw the Kornilov fight as well. The fight against Pavel, he hit him with a beautiful left hook, dropped him, finished him there. That was a pretty solid knockout. I don't think Martin Budai has that power to knock out Gaziev. I don't know if Gaziev's going to be able to knock out Budai either. But if I had to give the edge in power, I'd say, I mean, I've seen Gaziev hit guys clean and them drop. Um, at the UFC level, Martin Budai hasn't done that. I mean, Gaziev, sure, you could say the same thing about him, but in all fairness, I mean, Gaziev, at least he did go the distance and get takedowns in the later rounds against Kirill Kornilov, who actually was a former Glory kickboxer, um, 13-0 at the time as well. And he took him down in every round. It was he didn't do like a ton of damage in that fight, but he was getting takedowns in every round and showed that he should have, the cardio to deal with a guy like Martin Budai. So, um, realistically speaking, this is just a fade on Martin Budai. I just hate his game. I hate that his level of competition is terrible. And hopefully Gaziev isn't a complete fraud. And hopefully he can, beat up Martin Budai, who's just a fat heavyweight that arguably shouldn't even be in the UFC. Andre Fili versus Lucas Almeida is the next fight. This is a tough one. I'm going to go with Fili, but I'm quite worried about it. And the reason I'm worried about it is because Andre Fili, his chin is right up in the air, and it can get cracked by a guy like Lucas Almeida. So take that for what it's worth. If you guys are thinking about, you're looking at the line minus 170 for Fili, I'd be wary. I'd be very wary because he could get Lucas Almeida has some real knockout power. Knocked out Michael Trezano, hit him with a huge left hook, dropped him bad, finished him, and it's just with Almeida, like you really gotta you have to worry about that power. You have to worry about that. If he lands on you, you could really get hurt. Now the thing with Almeida though, what we've learned about him is his grappling is not at this level. Not to say it's like completely like the worst grappling we've ever seen, but like the Sabatini fight was just completely just one sided. it was one sided from start to finish. Sabatini dominated Almeida, beat him up on the ground, made him tap out pretty soon in round two with an arm triangle. And I mean, Sabatini is a very good grappler, so I'm not trying to, say Almeida is like terrible for losing that fight. I mean, a lot of people will get out grappled by Sabatini if he gets on top of you. So I'm not going to say there's any real shame in losing to Sabatini, but just the way he was manhandled, it's not even like it was like competitive at all. It's not like he got taken down very, early into the round, controlled for the whole first round, dominated, got his face battered in, and then the second round there was more of the same, taken down, getting his face battered in, and then immediately Sabatini locked up an arm triangle. So grappling deficiency for Lucas Almeida. Feely has a grappling edge, is training out of Team Alpha Male, which is a pretty good wrestling gym, grappling gym. So if if Andre Feely has a brain in his head, which apparently a lot of these fighters don't have brains in their heads because they decide to take the path of most resistance. I don't understand why. If they had any sort of IQ above room temperature, these guys would take the path of least resistance, which for Feely means take this guy down and control him, look to submit him. Don't just stand there and trade with him because that's how you're giving him a chance. You give Almeida a chance, by standing there and trading with him. You don't want to stand there and trade with him because he can knock you out. So I am going to go with Andre Feely. He also has much more UFC experience. Almeida, he's only had 2 UFC fights, one against Trezano, where he also got dropped, by the way. For whoever doesn't remember that fight, Trezano dropped Almeida as well. And Andre Feely does have some pretty good, like, he's got some decent power. He also has some nice head kicks. Like, he could hurt Lucas Almeida. He could drop Lucas Almeida. Almeida is, he is hittable. It's not like he's like an iron chin either. Like, he can get dropped. He's been dropped by Trezano. So I'm going to go with the guy in Andre Feely. I know he's got a lot of losses on his record, 22-10. But if you look at the guys he's losing to pretty good competition. I mean, Nathaniel was a solid fighter, wins a split against Bill Algeo, and he actually out-grappled Algeo in parts of that fight, took his back. I think that was at the second or the third. I believe it was the third round, took his back for like 2 or 3 minutes. And if you can body triangle Bill Algeo from the back, I think you can do the same thing against Lucas Almeida, who has way worse grappling than Algeo. Looking down his record, Joe Anderson Brito, very good fighter. Bryce Mitchell, elite fighter. Sodiq Yusuff, very good. Michael Johnson split. You know how Michael Johnson is, though. Calvin Kattar, Yair Rodriguez. Like, you scroll down this guy's record, he's losing to really good competition. He's losing to the elite of the division for the most part. And I don't think Lucas Almeida falls into that elite category. So give me Andre Feely to win the fight. Third fight of the night brings us to Tagir Ulanbekov versus Cody Durden. Man, this is one where I'm like, this is one of the ones where I'm really kind of 50-50. I've been 50-50 on this for a bit. I've wanted to go Durden, and I was really thinking about going Durden. And I know if I pick against him and if he wins, I'm just gonna be pissed off because I didn't do it. But I gotta pick Ulanbekov here. I gotta pick Tagir Ulanbekov. Listen, I think Durden's a good fighter. I think he's a scrappy guy. He's not gonna quit on himself. Like, he is a tough dude. As shown in the Jake Hadley fight. However, Ulanbekov, I don't see him getting just dominated in the wrestling exchanges by Durden. I don't see Durden, even if Durden takes him down, I could see Durden taking him down. I could see Durden taking him down, getting on top of him, but I don't think Tagir is going to, stay on the bottom. I think even if Durden takes him down, Ulanbekov's going to look to get back up to his feet, or he's going to look to grab a neck. Durden does get a little bit tired, and he does shoot pretty lazy takedowns as the fight goes on. And I think, he probably will come out pretty hard. He always comes out pretty fast. But I could just see Durden struggling in the later rounds. I really can. If you look at his fight against Hadley, I know he worked his way out of that armbar. He also worked his way out. I believe it was a guillotine in the end of round 1 where he got caught. And if there was like 10 or 20 more seconds on the clock, he might have gotten submitted in that round as well. So Hadley had his neck with a guillotine, end of round 1. There was like 10 seconds left. when Hadley got the guillotine. So Durden did survive that. But if Tagir Bekov catches you in that same guillotine, I don't know if Durden's surviving. I mean, Makayev, got him in a guillotine, submitted him. Um, I'm not saying Tagir is going to have that exact same, is going to catch that same guillotine that Makayev did, but I mean, Durden, he's a guy that he can get caught. That's the thing, right? He can get caught. He got flying triangled by Jimmy Flick, which you could say it's like a Hail Mary, 1 in 100 type of submission that happened against Cody Durden. But the fact that he even got flying triangled is I mean, I don't know if his grappling is going to be up to the standard of Dagestan to Yurilan Bekov, who trains with Team Habib. If this guy Tagir Bekov gets out grappled or out wrestled by Durden, I mean, I know his fight against Tim Elliott was a bad look. Tim Elliott also cheated in that fight. Tim Elliott was grabbing his gloves. He was, he was doing everything he could to cheat. Um, and he should have gotten a point deduction from all the fouls that he committed. And if you go back and watch the fight, or if you even watch like an interview with Tim Elliott, he'll admit to the cheating. So he'll admit that he was playing a little bit dirty there. So Bekov won the third round against Elliott, took his back, got him in the body triangle. I just see, Tagir, I think he does, he won't slow down. If Durden slows down, I feel like Tagir will still have a little, still be able to keep up, maintain that pace. I don't see Durden just, breaking him down, breaking his will. Um, I do think Tagir is live for a sub here. I think he's very live for a submission, especially guillotine. I think that's the one where it's like guillotine, um, or just catching him when Durden tries to shoot, right? That's typically how Durden gets caught in a lot of these, submissions, where he shoots, he leaves his neck out there. He is a wrestler. He's going to shoot a lot. I imagine he's not going to want to just have a 3-round striking fight, right? So if he doesn't want to have a 3-round striking fight with Bekov, he shoots takedowns. Eventually, I feel like either in the second or the third round, he's going to get a little bit tired. He's going to shoot a little bit sloppier of a takedown. Maybe it's, he tries to get the takedown. Um, Maybe he does complete the takedown, but Bekov, while in completion of the takedown, Bekov snatches up the neck, gets him in a guillotine, tight guillotine. Durden has to tap. Um, like I said, I know he is tough. He'll try to fight the hands. He'll try not to tap, but it's not like he hasn't tapped before. He got flying triangled by Jimmy Flick, and he did tap to Makayev. Didn't tap to Hadley. Hadley was ripping his arm apart, and he didn't tap to that. Nor did he tap to the guillotine in round one against Hadley. But I just think there's levels to grappling. I do think Bekov probably is a better grappler than a guy like Jake Hadley. And if you look at Bekov's last few fights, other than the Tim Elliott fight, which I know it's not the greatest look, I know people are comparing Cody Durden to Tim Elliott, but in all fairness to Tim Elliott, I mean, I'm not high on Tim Elliott, so I wasn't really too thrilled with that fight for Bekov here. But if you really pay attention to that Tim Elliott fight, it's not like Elliott was dominating the fight. He was just scrambling well. And Elliott, I feel like Elliott's got probably better cardio than Durden as far as grappling cardio, because Durden, he can push a pace, but he gets tired. And then the Nate Maness fight for Bekov, that was a good win, standing guillotine. Nate Maness worked his way up, and Bekov just caught him in a submission. That the same, like I said, same thing can happen to Durden. He could catch his neck. I really feel that's a strong possibility. The Alan Nascimento fight for Tagir, he was in a few dangerous positions, but he was able to overcome all of them, and that was 2 years ago. And Alan Nascimento is a good fighter, man. Like, Alan Nascimento is a very good submission grappler, off his back, or just in general, just a very good grappler. Training out shoot to box with Charles Oliveira, one of his main training partners. So the fact that Bekov went in there and beat him, held like 9 or 10 minutes, whatever, of top control, and didn't get submitted, or didn't really. He was in some dangerous positions, but worked his way out of them all. It shows an ability that Bekov can grapple. He can work his way out of submissions. And just in general, I feel like his striking, I know he doesn't have any knockouts on his record, but I feel like he has pretty crisp, pretty clean striking. And over the distance, if this fight does go longer, I do think that he will start to wear on Durden and be able to win this fight. It is competitive. I'm not saying it's a wise idea to like lay a bunch of money on a minus 175 Bekov because Durden he has done pretty well as an underdog. He was an underdog against Hadley. He was an underdog against Johnson. I believe he was an underdog against JP Bays and also Moda. So I believe in his last four he was an underdog and he won all of them. But I do think Tagir Bekov is a big step up from a guy like Charles Johnson in the grappling, or a guy like Carlos Moda, or who else did? What was Durden's last? I mean, Hadley. Hadley's a good grappler, but I think Ulanbekov is a higher level grappler and wrestler, especially than any guy that Durden has fought in his last 3 or 4 fights. Next, spent a lot of time on that one. This one, Casey O'Neill, Ariane Lipski. Look, Casey O'Neill, I understand she lost her last fight. She's coming off some injuries as well and stuff like that. Torn ACL, I believe, was the injury that she was coming off of. I just think Casey O'Neill is going to win the fight because Ariane Lipski's grappling is just atrocious. I know it held up against Gatso and Aldrich, but I mean, yeah, she got knocked out by Priscilla Cachoeira in the first round. That's because Priscilla Cachoeira is just basically a brawler, and she brawled the brawler and got finished. I don't think her fight IQ, Lipski's, is all that impressive. I mean, I know some of these losses in her career are a few years ago, but I mean, look at some of the people she's lost to. Joanne Wood, Molly McCann, beats Luana, but Montana De La Rosa and Antonina Shevchenko, getting ground and pounded out by Montana De La Rosa. Montana De La Rosa is a solid grappler, but Antonina Shevchenko, that's the one where it's it's a question mark. You know what I mean? And for O'Neill, I'm not really gonna say I'm super super high on O'Neill either, because it's she is pretty overrated, to be quite honest with you. But she did fight Jennifer Maia. Maia is a top 15 level talent. Lipski's young, so you could always say that she's making improvements. She's probably the better, more power on the feet. You could say she's a better striker in general. Um, O'Neill's definitely got the grappling advantage. Definitely training at a very, very good gym, Extreme Couture. She should have a good game plan coming into this one. She is younger. I do expect her to also be making a lot of improvements. Um, she's got good cardio. She doesn't give up. She likes to pressure, put a lot of volume out there, push the pace. Um, I do like Casey O'Neill. I like Casey O'Neill here. I think that she does have to work in wrestling here. She can't just go 15 minutes on the feet. I think if she's smart, she might strike for a little bit, but then that will lead into takedowns, and I think that'll ultimately win her the fight if she does do that, because Lipski has shown a big grappling deficiency in the past. So I think that's the hole that she wants to exploit. Next on the prelims is Cody Garbrandt versus Brian Boom Kelleher. I see a lot of love on the Kelleher side. I just don't get it. I know Cody Garbrandt's got no chin, but dude, Brian Kelleher, man, 37-year-old Brian Kelleher, who's a journeyman at best. I mean, he's only been a journeyman. He's never been more than that. Cody Garbrandt has been a former champion. I know his chin's not good. I know he's been knocked out a few times. I know it's these champions or former champions can lose to journeymen once their chins are gone. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. But this one I feel like it's a different story, because it's not like Garbrandt's complete. It's not like if Garbrandt and Kelleher were the same age. If they were both 37, I would pick Brian Kelleher. But Kelleher's he's past his prime. He's been, he's had injuries. He's had some time away. He hasn't fought in a year and a half, and he's lost his last two. He doesn't have a win in almost 2 years, and his last win was against Kevin Kroom, who honestly Kevin Kroom's probably worse than Trevin Jones. Or the more I look at this, I'm just I just don't understand the love on, unless Kelleher finds like a big knockout, just completely dusts the chin of Cody Garbrandt, which I'm not saying is impossible, because Garbrandt's chin has been dusted on multiple occasions. I mean, if we look through his record, his chin's been dusted by Dillashaw twice, Munoz, Kaikar France down a weight class, which that one was really just dumb. Why even drop down to, you have chin issues, You've been knocked out. Don't move down in weight. That might, I was really high on Kai Kara France. He was actually an underdog in that fight. Kara France was. That was one of the like that was one of the craziest things to me that Kai Kara France was an underdog in that fight. Garbrandt going down in weight with his chin problems. I was really really high on Kara France there, but in this one, yeah, I'm going Garbrandt. I'm going Garbrandt. And I do think I was actually on Trevin Jones, which is kind of wild that it was even on that side. But I mean, I know, like, I think it was more of the fact that I was just so low on Cody at the time, and I'm still low on him overall. I'm not saying that I think Cody's going to jump back, to where he was, but he is training out of a good gym, right? What does Brian Kelleher do best? If he doesn't find, I don't think, unless he lands like a perfect shot, which I don't know if it has to be a perfect shot to knock out Garbrandt, but Garbrandt's a much quicker guy. He's quicker, quicker hands and just quicker in general. I think the speed is on the side of Garbrandt. He trains with better guys. He trains with the likes of Patchy Mix, who's got one of the best guillotines in the sport. Kelleher loves to jump guillotine, so I do think Garbrandt will be prepared for um, Kelleher pulling guillotine if that is an option for him. Um, Garbrandt has well-timed takedowns. Not really doesn't have a ton of control with the takedowns, but he does time them well to mix things up. Kind of get in your head, get yourself thinking. Get yourself thinking. Oh, is he going to shoot? Is he going to strike? That sort of thing. So yeah, I do like Garbrandt. Training with better guys. Actually won the belt, beat Dominic Cruz. I know that was years ago at this point, so I'm talking about the past, but he's just fought the way better level guys. Not that Brian Keller hasn't fought some pretty good guys in his career, but we're talking about a former world champion that's still 32 years old. It's not like he's like 37 or 40, whatever. Kelleher's a journeyman. He's 24 and 14. Um, lost to Mario Bautista, got submitted in the first round. Lost to Umar, got submitted in the first round. Beat Kevin Kroom and Domingo Pilarte. Not impressive whatsoever. Beat Ricky Simone, lose to Ricky Simone, lose to Cody Stamen, lose to Montel Jackson. I feel like if you're top 15 level, you're beating Brian Kelleher. So this is basically a test to see if Garbrandt still got it. If he still got it, not even saying like if he's 100% of what he was. If Cody Garbrandt is like 60% of what he was, he should be able to beat Brian Kelleher here. And I don't think he's completely washed up. I don't think he's the same guy, but to say he's like completely washed up in comparison to a guy like Kelleher, who's 37 coming off of injuries, I'm not trusting Kelleher. I'm going Garbrandt. Irene Aldana and Carol Rosa is the next one. I'll keep this one short because I don't have much really to say about Irene Aldana except for um, she's looked worse and worse as of recent. She's getting older. I'm going with Carol Rosa. If you couldn't tell, could be this could turn out pretty bad for me because the levels of competition have been pretty one-sided. Like Irene Aldana has fought the much better level of competition compared to Rosa. Amanda Nunes, Macy Chasson, yeah, you could say Chasson and Santos, nah. But Nunes, Holm, Ketlin Vieira, not even solid, three very good fighters. Amanda Nunes, women's GOAT, Holly Holm 3 years ago, not current Holly Holm, 3 years ago Holly Holm, who was still a pretty solid fighter, and then Ketlin Vieira 4 years ago, she beat. Aldana's got power. She's got good boxing. I think her grappling is lacking. I think that she's slowing down quite a bit. I do like Aldana's like. I don't if she was younger. Honestly, if Aldana was younger, I wouldn't have as much of a problem with her, especially in this spot. But just the fact that she's 35 years old now, getting older, I think that Amanda Nunes fight has to have taken a lot out of her mentally. It's more so the fact that she just quit in that fight for me, more than that she lost. Because losing to Amanda Nunes is like no shame, absolutely no shame. Losing to Amanda Nunes, it's like nothing to be ashamed of whatsoever. It's the fact that she didn't try to win. And when I say she didn't try to win, it's not like, she threw some, she was letting her hands go and she was just getting punched a lot and, she had no chance. She didn't throw her hands. She didn't throw her hands. She was afraid to get hit. It seemed like she was afraid. She was afraid to let her hands go and get countered, or take the power of Nunes. So she was just showing up, letting herself, like, basically letting Nunes tee off on her guard, without even throwing anything. It was just a terrible, terrible performance from Aldana. At least if she tried, if she loses the fight, but she tried, she threw power, she tried, did whatever she could to win, then I would have said, all right. But she gave up. She didn't try. She basically quit on herself. She quit on herself, and she's 35 years old now. And after that awful performance, after quitting on herself, I don't know how I can pick her. Even in the Macy Chasson fight, she beat Macy Chasson and beat her with an up kick to the liver. And she was going to lose the fight, though. She lost round two. She can get out grappled, by a lot of people, and just eh, I'm so low on Aldana after that Nunes fight. And like I said, it's not for the fact that that she lost to Nunes. That's not the reason. It's the fact that she gave up against Nunes. She quit. She basically said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just going to shell up and not throw any punches. In a championship fight, you've worked your entire life for, you're not going to throw punches. You're going to quit on yourself. I don't care if she wins this fight. I'm never picking her again against anyone decent. And I think Carol Rose is at least decent. So I'm picking Rosa to win. Alonzo Menifield and Dustin Jacoby. I believe this is the headliner of the prelims. It is. Solid fight. Very, very solid fight. I do like Dustin Jacoby here. I like Jacoby. I like him, probably by decision. I mean, could be inside the distance too. I mean, Jacoby does have some pop on his punches, but yeah, I think Jacoby is, outside of him getting cracked here. I know Menifield does have some submissions on his record, but I think Jacoby keeps his standing. I think he keeps his standing. I think he's the better striker. Alonzo Menifield does have one punch knockout power, and we've seen Jacoby can get rocked. He can get, he's only been finished once in his career he's been finished once by knockout in his career in MMA, but he has been rocked quite a few times, in a few different fights. For this one, though, I just think Menifield, he's one of those guys where he's got to land that power. He's got to land that power. And if he does land it, he can beat you. But overall, Jacoby's better. He's a better overall kickboxer. He's fought in glory. He's fought against Alex Pereira. Granted, he got knocked out by Pereira, but, I mean, it is Alex Pereira. He's knocked out pretty much everybody he's fought, even in MMA. So I'm going with Dustin Jacoby to beat Menifield. Not much else to say there. Menifield is a tank. He is a tank. So would it be really shocking if he goes out there and knocks out Dustin? No, it wouldn't be surprising. So I'm not super confident, but I do think Dustin is the overall better striker, and I think that'll win him the fight, probably over the 3. Josh Emmett and Bryce Mitchell opening up the main card because Ian Gary pulled out of the fight against Vicente Luque. If he really is sick, I'm not going to, there's no way for us to know if he's, sick or not. I'm guessing he is. I don't know why. I don't think he pulled out just because of, people were talking negatively about him. I'm not going to get into that right now, though. Emmett, Mitchell. My pick is Bryce Mitchell. Josh Emmett, I'll talk about Josh Emmett first. You guys know I don't dislike Emmett. I don't dislike him. I think he's a good dude. I think he's a solid guy. So I don't want to sound like I'm like a hater, but I think Josh Emmett's so overrated. I think he's so overrated. And like I said, I don't mean to sound like an asshole to the guy because he is a good fighter, but good and overrated can both be used to describe him because he is good, but compared to what people think he's like a top 5 guy. I don't think he is. I think he is top 15 level, but I don't think he's top 5 level. Ilia Topuria destroyed him, made it look easy. I know he beat Bryce Mitchell as well, but that fight took years off of his life. Yair Rodriguez also beat him, made it look relatively easy, submitted him. He took a lot of damage in that fight. Calvin Kattar, that was one of the worst. That was that round 4. That judge that gave round 4 to Josh Emmett in the Kattar fight needs to be arrested for robbery. Excuse me. That was awful. I hated watching that. When I found out they gave round 4 to Emmett, I was I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the corruption that happens in the UFC sometimes. I thought that was the classic case of corruption. Giving round four to Emmett when he lands 20 strikes to Cater's 40. Just absolutely terrible, terrible scorecard, terrible decision in general. So he should be on a 3-fight losing streak. The fight against Dan Ige, a lot of people also thought he could have arguably lost that fight. So when you really look through the guy's record, when you really look through Emmett's record, it could be worse. It could be, he could have 6 losses. You know what I mean? He could be 16-6 right now instead of 18-4 against Bryce Mitchell. And when you look at Bryce Mitchell, another thing about Emmett, before I get into Mitchell, another thing about Emmett, 38 years old, about to be 39. He's no spring chicken. He's been in the sport for a long, long time. He has a lot of miles under him, a lot of damage. And I don't think him getting in here against Mitchell on short notice is going to be good for him because he was game planning for a striker. He was game planning for Giga Chikadze, and Giga Chikadze, I feel like, would have beaten him because I feel like Josh Emmett doesn't really. He probably wouldn't have wrestled in that fight because he never really wrestles, or at least he hasn't shown an ability to in a long, long time. I think that Bryce Mitchell's wrestling will be able to. Um, I think he'll be able to take down Emmett. I know Emmett's. People talk about Emmett's wrestling, and I know he's training out of a good gym as well, Team Alpha Male. So good gym. Same gym as obviously Andre Feely, Song Yadong, a few other guys. Like it's a good gym, good gym. But when you're 38 years old, about to be 39, fighting a guy in his prime who's he's going to be able to wrestle and grapple hard for 15 minutes, regardless of if it's short notice or not. This guy Bryce Mitchell will be putting the pressure on for the full 15, trying to get Emmett down, drag him to the ground, get on top. And I feel like if Bryce Mitchell gets on top, he's going to do some serious damage to Emmett. Um, yeah, I don't. I Emmett's striking, even in the striking, I feel like Emmett does have power. He does have the power to hurt Mitchell, but I feel like his striking is also a little bit overrated. I mean, a lot of it's just him winging overhands and just trying to connect with those big overhand rights. And I think Mitchell, if he times it correctly, times his takedowns, I think he can get them. I think he gets the takedowns. I think he wears on Emmett, and I think Bryce Mitchell gets this one done. I think it goes the distance. Bryce Mitchell wears out Emmett, beats him over 3, um, and stacks another win up using his wrestling and superior grappling. Next fight on the main card, Tony Ferguson versus Paddy Pimblett. You guys know who I'm going with here. It shouldn't be much of a debate. Paddy Pimblett's going to smoke Tony Ferguson. Ferguson's so washed up, it's not even funny. He's 39 years old, about to be 40, and he's lost 6 fights in a row. And some of them were not really bad losses. I mean, the fight before Oliveira was the Justin Gaethje fight. So he loses to Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje, he's a tough, tough opponent to fight. Then he loses to Oliveira after that, gets dominated in the grappling by Dariush, gets front kicked in the face by Chandler, also got taken down by Chandler in the first round, loses to Nate Diaz, which is just an awful, awful look. That might be one of the worst look. Not even the fact that he lost, just the fact, like the whole fight was just embarrassing. It was an embarrassing main event. Diaz and Ferguson both washed up, way out of their primes, and Ferguson looked even worse than Diaz. Diaz was turning around, walking away in the middle of the fight, and Ferguson didn't look any better. So terrible, terrible. And then against Bobby Green, it was even worse. You thought it couldn't get worse until Bobby Green goes out there and submits him. Bobby Green, a guy that's known for his boxing, goes out there and subs Tony Ferguson. And now you're fighting Paddy Pimblett. Say what you want about Paddy Pimblett. The dude's 28 years old, in his pretty much the prime of his career, and he can grapple. If he can do one thing, he can grapple. I think, Paddy Pimblett, he at least has some test in his body. Tony doesn't, clearly, because he's on a 6-fight losing streak. He's way out of it, way washed up, no athleticism left. Yeah, I think if Paddy loses, he should get cut. I know I say this pretty much, like I say this at least once in every single fight. Not every single fight. I say this at least once on every single fight card. But I mean it. If Paddy Pimblett loses this fight, he should never fight in the UFC again if you lose to a 40-year-old Ferguson. So Pimblett wins, probably just takes him down and submits him, gets on top of him, just starts grounding, pounding him. Maybe Tony gives up the neck. Probably not. Tony probably tries to fight out of it because he is Tony Ferguson. He's probably not going to want to tap to Paddy. But I just see Paddy beating him. Even in the striking, I feel like at this point, it's almost 40-year-old Ferguson, against Paddy. He's taken so much damage. I got to go with Paddy. Not much else to say there. Featured fight of the night. What do you have? What do you know here? We have another 40-year-old. This time it's Shavkat Rakhmonov, 29-year-old Shavkat versus the about to be 41-year-old Wonderboy. Stephen Thompson, Wonderboy, is such a he is such an entertaining fighter. Just such I want to see Wonderboy fight MVP. That's the fight that I've been wanting to see. I think if Wonderboy loses this, just match him up against MVP. Just make it like a big, at this, I don't think MVP or Wonderboy are going to get the belt anyway. So, if they're not going to get the belt anyway, just put them up against each other for fun. Let the fans enjoy it. Let them enjoy it. MVP, great striker. Wonderboy, great striker. I know I'm already talking in advance. I'm acting like this fight. I know I'm not really giving a lot of respect to Wonderboy here, but how does he win this fight? I don't think he has the power. I mean, unless he lands like a flush head kick on Shavkat or something like that, I don't think he has like the punching power. Surely I don't think he has the punching power to knock out Shavkat. I don't think his grappling is anywhere near Shavkat. I think if Shavkat gets on top of him, he finishes him. Whatever round he gets on top of him in, I feel like he submits him. Even in the striking, Stephen Thompson, he did get hit and rocked a little bit against Kevin Holland in the first round. I know he's coming off that win, but like Holland broke his hand, and in that first round, say what you want, like Wonderboy did beat up Kevin Holland pretty badly, but in the first round, Holland had him rocked a little bit, had him hurt, and I feel like Shavkat, like if Shavkat hurts him, I feel like he jumps on him and finishes him. I hate to say it because Wonderboy is such he's such a good dude. Like he really is one of the nicest guys in the sport. Just such a good stand-up guy. Nothing but love and respect for Wonderboy, but I just got to be honest here. I think Shavkat runs him over. I think Shavkat can win this fight in the grappling pretty easily, even in the strike. I think in the striking, it will be challenging for Shavkat, but even in the striking, I feel like he is the guy in his prime. He is the guy that should be ready to strike with Wonderboy and probably could hurt Wonderboy on the feet. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a club and sub type of situation. So give me Shavkat inside the distance. I don't know if it's going to be sub or knockout, but I do think he gets it done. And if Wonderboy does get finished in this fight or does lose badly, I say he just fights MVP. Maybe he just fights MVP and then hangs up the gloves, because I do think that would be a great send-off fight for Wonderboy. Co-main event is Alexandre Pantoja versus Brandon Royval 2. This is actually a tough one to predict. I'll say that. It's tougher than I thought. I'm going to go with Pantoja. Just because Pantoja's the guy training out of ATT. They're not too far apart, only about 2 to 2.5 years apart in age. But both not too old, 33 versus 31. Pantoja, he's coming off some great wins. Brandon Moreno, I know it was a split, but it was a pretty clear win for Pantoja. Beats Alex Perez, beats Brandon Royval, beats Manel Kape, and then lose to Askar Askarov. That Royval fight 2 years ago, Royval was having some success in that fight. I do think Pantoja, it is a 5-round fight here. I do think Royval will come out strong. I feel like Royval comes out heavy, and he will, push a heavy pace on Pantoja. But we've seen with Pantoja, I just think it's a matter of Pantoja breaking that mental barrier that's in his head sometimes. Sometimes, it does look like he's getting a little tired, but he just tells himself, F it, I'm just going to keep going forward. If I get hit or if I'm dog tired, I'm just going to keep pushing. That's what happened against Moreno. He told himself, I'm not going to quit. I know I'm tired. I'm going to take this back anyway. I'm gonna do whatever I can to win. My legs are burning up, my arms are burning up. I'm gonna keep going, and that's what he did, and that's how he won the belt. And I see him doing the same thing here. I think Brandon Royval is an excellent fighter. I think he will push the pace. I think he will have early success. And even if he does have success throughout the fight, I think there is an opportunity for Pantoja to catch him in something. I think Pantoja could catch him in a submission for the second time and finish Royval, or overall just. Um, I do think that that is actually a pretty likely outcome. Pantoja to catch him in a submission. Um, Catch Royval in a submission here. Not that I'm banking on, Pantoja has to win by submission. Like we just saw in the Moreno fight, Brandon Moreno is like a fantastic fighter, and we saw how he looked against him. So if Pantoja gets it back, Royval is in big trouble. I think that's definitely very likely to happen here. So I am going to go with Alexandre Pantoja to retain his belt. And lastly, we have the main event of the evening, the one that I've been looking forward to for a long, long time. I'm sure all of you guys can, relate to that. I'm sure all of you guys are thinking the same thing with me, that you guys have been waiting for this fight. You guys have been kind of breaking this down in your head as well for a long, long time, as have I. I'll tell you guys what. Um, My thought has been the same. My thought has been the same on this fight since it first got made. And I've tried to look at both sides. I really have. I've tried to go back and forth. I've tried to like really think about what I think is going to happen here. And I just come to the same conclusion. I just think Leon Edwards gets it done. I think Leon Edwards is the better fighter than Colby Covington. Um, First of all, we don't. I mean, I know I don't. I shouldn't even bring up the press conference because it has nothing really to do with the fight in itself. But what Covington said about Leon's dad, it was just just messed up, just a messed up thing to say. I know he's trying to sell the fight. I know he's trying to, I know it's like people say, oh, there's no rules in the fight game and you can say whatever you want, but it's like, there is a price to pay when you say stuff like that. When you go after someone's family like that, I mean, he's gonna come in with a fire under him. I don't think he's gonna come in, aggressive. I just think he's gonna come in with the fire in him, thinking like, okay, I'm not letting this guy beat me. This guy said some messed up stuff about my family. I don't think Leon's gonna let it slide, and I'm not picking Leon just because of that. I do think he's a better fighter. I think the striking is levels apart. I think Colby, I think he gets sliced up by elbows here. Um, I know people talk about like in the clinch against the cage. I think in the clinch against the cage, unless Colby's in on the legs, I think Leon could slice him up with elbows. Leon Edwards is just a like I have nothing else to say just besides he's a fantastic striker. He is elite. Um, that head kick set up against Usman, like how he booted Usman's head out cold. Um, it was incredible. Last minute of the fight, beats Usman, gets the belt, beats him in the rematch, or I guess the trilogy at that point. Covington, Covington's 35 now, um, closer to 36. Leon's 32. Covington has been out for a long time as well. He's been out for close to 2 years, coming off a win against Masvidal. That's another thing with Covington. I think Leon, not to say that Leon's level of competition, Leon and Colby have fought very, very, very similar levels of competition. But I just feel like the way that Colby's like his last few fights against Masvidal. I mean, I know he dominated Masvidal and everything, but it's like that's a washed up Masvidal who was always a journeyman. Um, let's just be honest with ourselves. Masvidal was what 16 losses on his record. Like it's not like Colby was like the only guy to dominate him. Like Masvidal has been dominated by other guys. He's been beaten multiple times. And I think Leon would have dominated Masvidal had they fought as well. Um, and by the way, you could say what you want about the Edwards. Oh, we got rocked by Nate Diaz. Colby got rocked and dropped by Masvidal. So you can't make that comparison. If you want to put it on one side, you have to put it on the other. Leon got rocked by Nate Diaz. Colby got rocked by Masvidal. So I guess they cancel out, right? You continue looking on. Kamaru Usman. Colby has 2 losses to Usman. Leon has 2 wins against Usman. Different styles. Styles make fights. That's the classic saying. Styles can make or break a fight. or a fighter. I just think Leon, for this style of fight, Colby's going to push the pace. We know that. We know Colby's going to shoot takedowns over and over. He's not going to want to stand with Leon. I think in the distance striking, I think if Leon's in the distance striking here, if he can stuff some takedowns from Colby, which is hard to do, but if he can stuff a few, and Colby starts to just start pressuring him without, setting things up, I think you pressure a guy like Leon without setting things up, he's gonna, tee off on you. He's gonna, kick the body. He's gonna kick your legs. He's gonna look for high kicks. He's gonna look for elbows, for knees, for punch. Like he's just so well rounded. His skill set is so well rounded. Where if you make some mistakes in the striking, he will capitalize on those mistakes and he will, butcher you. To the point where it's like maybe not butcher you to the fact like he's like knocking you out, with every like really hurting you with every shot, but he will wear you down if he does land those hard knees to the body, good slicing elbows to the face. Like those do add up. Those do they do damage over time, um, and those do kind of could lead into a knockout shot for Edwards. So I like Edwards. I could see it. I could see him finishing the fight inside the distance. I could see him, flatlining Covington, knocking him out with a head kick. I'm not saying that's how he's gonna win by head kick, but I could see it. I could see him winning by head kick. I could see him slicing Colby up with elbows. If Colby's in the clinch, I could see him trying to go for knees in the clinch, knees to the body, wear down that body of Covington, try to zap the gas tank. Because we know Colby's got a really good gas tank. How do you zap someone's gas tank? You work the body. I think Leon's got to work the body here. Kicks to the body, knees to the body. Um, I think him working the body would, kind of not allow, it would restrict Colby from pushing that same pace. And I think if he does, do that, if Leon does, hunt for those body shots and they start to add up over time, I think, on the feet, Colby will be a sitting duck for Leon. Um, I don't see Colby getting on. If Colby does get on top of Leon, I see Leon working his way back up. I think Leon's too big to just hold down. I don't think Colby just holds him down and Leon just stays on the ground. I think Leon works his way up. Colby could take him down. He'll work his way back up again. If he gets the range, I think is one-sided affair. So give me Leon Edwards, Rocky Edwards to win this fight. Some sweet justice after what Colby said to him. And there it is. There is UFC 296 Edwards versus Covington. Amazing fight card. Can't wait to watch it. Thank you guys for watching this video as always. And I will see you probably in a month from now.